Typically when we're at the shooting range, we're having a great time and we're thinking about our training and we're thinking about the fun that we're having, but it's not often that people are thinking about the worst case scenario. Range training, shooting guns is fun and safe, but when things go wrong, they go wrong very quickly. What are you carrying on your day-to-day and what kind of training do you have when you're at the range? It's always going to come down to your training and the equipment you're carrying. So I'm going to be showing you all of the essential gear for the emergency trauma-related equipment. And yes, tourniquets are part of that. And what I'm going to be doing later is showing you actually how to prep your tourniquet and put it on the proper way. All right, so going into your boo-boo kits, there's a lot of product out there that you can choose. Amazon, any like Walmart's, bigger companies sell like the home first aid safety kits. And they're often generic, right? You'll have your NSAIDs, you'll have bandages, you'll have Neosporin or something like that. But really what it comes down to is actually diving through these products and getting rid of the stuff that you don't need and packing it with the things that are most common. So for me, I've chosen a couple of these My Medic kits, right? We're not sponsored by these guys. It's just a very convenient package. You can get big ones, small ones. They run a little bit more expensive than some of the other med kits that you can find. Once again, this is not life-threatening, so you don't really have to dive too deep into the weeds here, but just showing you some of the things that I use a lot. You know, people come up with scrapes, bruises, they get hit by frag and they're bleeding a little bit. So you're looking at gauze, you're looking at bandages, and you're looking at like disinfectants. That's the most common. A package like this comes with quite a bit, right? They come with tourniquets, they come with burn equipment, they come with, you know, gloves and space blankets. But the organization in here, it's just organized in kind of categorical based. So you'll have bleed stuff. On this side, I've got like a chest seal, cold packs, a few like allergic reaction type medicines. None of these things are meant for life-saving immediate trauma. So I don't have to have things readily accessible very quick. These packs come with things that are for life-threatening injuries. For instance, the chest seals, the tourniquets. I wouldn't run those. I wouldn't run the chest seals out of this. I wouldn't run the tourniquets out of this unless I had absolutely nothing else. And the reason is because these kits aren't designed necessarily for that trauma, or at least I haven't set up this kit for trauma. Over here, it's set up for trauma. It's set up for speed. It's set up for life-saving only. And the only thing I really have to replenish are the bandages and some of the NSAIDs or the disinfectants. We've had people on the range where they go low blood sugar and they get to the point of passing out. So highly recommend some kind of glucose, right? Whether that's like a goo packet or straight glucose or gummy chews. People get hot, they need dehydration, so there's hydration salts, and people need energy, right? Shooting can be physical, especially if it's a hot day and it's a day on the range where you're out in a remote area. People forget to eat lunch. Glucose and electrolytes are things that I've always used. And in fact, this is the last one in this pack. I need to replenish it because they run out very quickly. So this rapid tourniquet is more like a piece of nylon, and there's a metal attachment, for lack of a better word, that you pull and you whip it and it gets tighter and tighter. This is not something I commonly use or would carry in my kit, but it is out there. This, along with quick clot or gauze that's treated with agents that stop the bleed, these things I would actually take out of this kit. You can have them in here, of course, as extras, but I would move these kits over to the trauma bag. Because in the event of something incredibly traumatic, you don't want to open up this bag of junk, meaning there's crap everywhere and most of it is useless. You want to open up something where everything in there is purpose-driven and there's a few things in there and you have it memorized. You know exactly what's in there and you know exactly how to use it. So I would take these two and I'd put it over here. All right, everything in here is non-emergency, to include the bandages and the packs, even the wash. None of that stuff is emergency. Stopping the bleed is emergency. What most people don't realize is to stop the bleed, you have about 90 seconds till a human can bleed out from an arterial bleed. 90 seconds or less, and they go into shock. 90 seconds means all of these products have to be within a minute or less of your access, because for me to run and grab this in 1 minute means I've got potentially less than 30 seconds to render aid to my friend, family, or loved ones. So really serious that these are on standby. You'll see a lot of people with their med kits on their belts. I prefer, if I'm wearing plates, I wear one of these kits behind my plates. It protects it. But there's a number of different products out there, as well as your range bag. Your range bag should always have one of these. I keep packs kind of everywhere. I keep it in my car. I keep emergency bags in my range bag. I keep it on my person so that anywhere I go, I'm within that minute to 90 second point where I can run to it, grab it, and render aid. Big question comes up, how many people should I be planning for? That's a good question. So when we teach classes, 10 to 15 people is what we're typically teaching. And out of that, we're not expecting a mass casualty event. We're not expecting 15 people to go down, nor are we planning for 15 people to go down. But I think a rough estimate would be if you can think of 10% of your force, 10% of your team potentially going down at any one time, that's a good number. Medics might carry more, obviously, but for me, I would carry about 10%. So I have on here typically enough for 2 to 3 people because I keep 3 med bags. I actually have more, but in my one kit, I typically have enough for 1 to 2 people. And I highly recommend, if you are the instructor or if you're going with a larger group, you definitely have redundancy because people might have multiple injuries. Let's focus now on just the emergency equipment itself. So the packs that I typically carry are from Focus. I know North American Rescue makes a really good pack. Focus, for me, I always used because they design a trauma kit that goes behind the plates. I think it's absolutely perfect product because if something happens to you, the last thing you want is that trauma kit being blown up or shot. So behind the plates, it was always secure. So I always do carry those, but then I have their car kit. I'm going to open up this vehicle one because it's been in my car for a while, and quite frankly, you want to change these out every so often. So I intend on doing that. But let's take a look at what we have in this. So they're vacuum sealed. This one lost its vacuum. This, keep in mind, this is a redundant kit to a lot of the things I have, but I keep it in my truck as that redundancy. So because it was vacuum sealed, the tourniquet is in plastic. This is how I see most tourniquets in people's kits. Or they'll take the package off so that it looks cooler, but they still won't prep it. So how do we prep a tourniquet? Prepping a tourniquet means getting it out of this package. Because if I have 90 seconds, well, I've spent about a minute of it just getting to this kit. And now I have to frantically open up this plastic, read the instructions, and figure it out. No, that doesn't work. So we prep our tourniquets where it looks like this, a fold. So with one hand, I should be able to like take this out, slide it on the arm, and then it's ready to go, where I can take this pull tab and then yank it and get it tighter and tighter, okay? And then of course I have the windlass. But how it's prepped is basically having a pull tab ready to go and then having that folded, S-folded, in any size or shape that you want to fit in your pocket, to fit in your gear. But it has to be ready where one-handed access can flip it out, and now you can do this. Because imagine if this was you might only have that one arm, right? You might not have both arms to be able to manipulate this thing. So one-handed access and ready to go, taken out of the packaging. Something that people mess up a lot is this piece, right? This is the cover for that windlass once you secure it, and it says time on it. People will close that, or they'll close this into it because it's tidy. The problem is with one hand, now you have to open this up, stow it, get this windlass out. Don't recommend that whatsoever. I recommend just leaving it completely open like this. That way you can get the windlass tight, because without the windlass, essentially this is just a piece of nylon. It's really not going to stop the bleed effectively. So tourniquets, most important here. Also, you gotta train them. People understand the concept of single bone, and single bone. They understand the concept of pulling it tight. What most people, when we train them on tourniquets, forget is how tight. We do this to several hundred people per year, right? We put them through this training, we throw a tourniquet on them, and the number one thing people exclaim is how tight it was. They're like, they cannot believe. They're like, it can't go any tighter. And we keep cranking. And I think that's really important to understand, because if you have to apply a tourniquet to a loved one, if you have to apply a tourniquet to your wife, your daughter, somebody who you love dearly, and you hear them screaming in this pain, and you hear them, begging to stop, and you have to realize, like, you have to apply more pain essentially to make the injury go away, or to make the bleed stop. So that's really important to know. That's a big lesson I learned overseas, was watching people in pain during these like combat trauma, medical related injuries, and knowing that you might have to cause more pain to fix the problem. And that's like a psychological barrier I think most people don't get to experience, that comes with training and real world experience. So tourniquets. How many tourniquets do you want on you? Always at least 2. 1 is none, 2 is 1. That's the phrase. But always you want to have 2. I keep this one on the outside of my med bag, so it's highly visible. Anyone can run and grab it. It's the fastest thing you can get, followed by my med kit. So going back to the med kit, we've got our tourniquet. We have our ability to stop the bleed. And then there's always going to be bandages and gauze. All right, this is another emergency bandage, and then there is gauze. Now, if you don't understand the difference, you can think of combat gauze or quick clot gauze as like gauze that's been treated with a chemical agent that stops the bleed by creating a barrier. It turns the blood into essentially like coagulated solid matter, so it's not flowing out. You stuff this into a bullet hole, and now the blood that's coming out, as long as you apply pressure to that artery or to those veins, it's going to help clog and stop that bleeding. So always buy extra of these. A friend of mine was shot, 2 easy holes in non-life-threatening places, and they used 4 medical kits worth of gauze to stop the bullet hole that went in a butt and a shoulder. They were non-life-threatening injuries, but that's how much gauze it takes. So typical standard med kits like this, they give you 1 piece of gauze, quick clot gauze, and then 2 pieces of gauze bandage. This is actually just a roll, so not this one. So there's 2 pieces of gauze in here. So think about that. If you need 4, you are out. But in a life-threatening situation, I'm gonna rip this shirt off, cut it, and use it if I have to, right? Anything to stop that bleed and save that life. But you can avoid that. Just buy more gauze, throw it in your kit. On the rolled bandages, this is once you pack a wound and you have the gauze sticking out and it forms a little ball, you can then take that bandage, roll it, and it keeps pressure tight on, because once you, the medic, or you, the lifesaver, leave, you still need that ability for the pressure to stop that bleeding. If you don't have nitrile gloves somewhere in your kit, you're going to be in a pretty precarious situation when you start getting into more mass casualties or training with people you don't know. I've been in situations where I'm holding pressure, or my hands are even inside of somebody who's bleeding. And if you don't have gloves, your first thought goes to, I hope this person doesn't have anything like crazy, diseases, infection. You'll transmit that so fast. So gloves, always keep it. It's going to give you that peace of mind. Okay, chest seal. Chest seal, how many of these do you need? Hopefully just 1. But they pack flat. And that's a really nice thing, because if you do have them in kits, you can stuff a couple of these. But what a chest seal does is when a shot goes through the the chest cavity, there's this pleural space and it forms a vacuum, and air comes in, which then crushes on your lungs, and people suffocate. So when you see people get shot through the chest, oftentimes if they don't bleed out, they suffocate. And what this does, in conjunction with the needle that I'm about to show you, this stops the air going into the chest cavity, and so that you can now make more of a balloon rather than this like sucking chest wound. They call it the sucking chest wound because as you inhale, you're getting air in and it's suffocating you more. So a chest seal, if you don't have a chest seal, because these are products to sell and they're great and they have intended use for this, duct tape, plastic bag. If you have saran wrap, you can close saran wrap and duct tape. Sometimes people's chest hair will make that vacuum go away. So, take it for what it's worth. But if you were to wrap somebody in plastic wrap or duct tape it, you can make a modified chest seal. Kind of a neat trick. And then with that chest seal, now this is something you definitely want training on, but these are decompression needles. A decompression needle is a needle that, if you can imagine piercing somebody's ear, the needle goes in and then you pull out and there's still a needle that's left in. What this does is, if somebody does have a sucking chest wound where the bullet enters their chest, we stop it. We stop that vacuum with the chest seal, and then these needles you can use to decompress that air that's been bottled up. As we inhale with a chest seal, we're now getting air into the lungs, but it's gonna keep getting to a point where we have to let some of that air in the pleural space out. This is a way of doing it. I've heard of stories of people using modified objects. I wouldn't recommend that. I have no medical advice to give on that, but these are things that could save lives if you're in a remote area. You have a bit more time with sucking chest wounds. You can probably, in most urban areas, get somebody to a hospital much faster than applying something that's kind of dangerous like this. And it's dangerous because you could puncture the lungs. So you could put it in on a side, and a lung that's completely fine, you may destroy it or damage it. Not something you want to be carrying in your kit if you don't have training on it. But if you're in a remote area and somebody is suffocating to death because of that sucking chest wound, this is something that will save lives. And then lastly, there is a nasopharyngeal tube. This is a tube where if somebody's airway is clogged, either from burns or from an obstruction, maybe they're choking on something, you can bypass the throat. You run this through somebody's nostril, and then you have a direct airway bypassing that throat. So sometimes people, like in fires, burn victims, they'll inhale and then their throat will close up either from the fire or the smoke or some combination, and then you can bypass it here. This is not something I've ever had to use on the range, but it is something I've seen used on people overseas. Definitely a life-saving tool. I was not a medic, but I've gone through countless medical trainings with live tissue, dummies, real-world experience on it. So I've gotten to see how these tools are used firsthand, and I still by no means feel like good enough to qualify myself as a medic. So, if you want to go to some training, make sure you get to test out the gear that you're carrying. Don't just grab some generic equipment. If you're going to carry this kit, maybe buy 2 of them. Buy 2, open one, play with that equipment, play with that gear, and get really familiarized with it so you know exactly what you have. Another way of doing it is taking all of these things that you buy on Amazon or any other company and just vacuum sealing them. That's what our medics used to do in the teams before all these cool packages came out. Now we can just buy them. You can actually make your own kit. So if you want more chest seals, if you want more gauze, buy all that stuff that you want for your custom med kit, and then vacuum seal it, keeps it nice for years and years, and then throw it in your kit, throw it on your belt, throw it in your car, and it's good to go. Lastly on this, I want to talk about trauma shears. Trauma shears. This is something I think gets overlooked, and that's because it's just a pair of scissors. Why is this important? Well, I'll tell you why it's important. Because what it does is it allows you to access the body to do a scan or to do a check so much faster than having to like lift a shirt up or slowly pull it off somebody, or even worse, take a knife and try jabbing at somebody's face while you're, you know, trying to take a helmet strap off. So trauma shears, one of those things that I would not leave home without. So hopefully you guys got some tips from this in the things that I carry. This is by no means exclusively what I carry, but it's usually what I have on me at every single range at a minimum, and on my everyday carry somewhere in my car, my person, or in my range bag. I would love to hear from you guys at home what kind of things you carry in your boo-boo kit, and also what kind of things you carry in your emergency bag, the trauma bag, the real stuff. Because these kits, I tend to see the same things, but these ones get a little bit crazy, a little bit funky. So I'd love to hear from you guys, things that you see on your ranges, things you see in your training that you carry, because there are a lot of accidents out there, and I have by no means seen all of them. All right, if you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, continue training, because that's how we move forward and that's how we progress.